Aloha, this is Veruschka on the Big Island of Hawaii. Welcome to Salt of the Earth, where today I have a lovely, beautiful astrologer as our guest, Meru Matu. She is joining us from Las Vegas, I believe. I just discovered her recently during my evening cooking when I love listening to astrological reports, and she just really took me by surprise with her authenticity, her lingo, her energy, basically. So I had a session with her and really am vibing with her vibe, and so I'm so grateful that she's willing to share about her journey and what sparked her coming out on YouTube like that, and just the soul of your message of where you're coming from. You just feel like you're really no nonsense. So please introduce yourself and share with us how you refer to yourself and what you feel like your mission is currently.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Meru Matu, and I do have a channel on YouTube, Sensual Astrology, and thank you so much for having me here with you. I really do appreciate it, and I'm excited to share everything. But yeah, I got onto YouTube just through following my intuition. I'm constantly in touch with my higher self and my oversoul, and really actually just pay attention, you know? So this was the message I was given, was to basically quit my job and come forth and bring all my information, because this is something I've been doing my whole life, but for people in my, local sphere, basically coworkers, friends, and family, things like that. But then I realized, I need to bring it out to everybody and not just be so specific, So I did, and everything has been working out really great. I've been going for a month now, and I've encountered beautiful souls like you, so I'm really grateful for the opportunity.
And you are openly referring to yourself as a walk-in, which I haven't really come across that term in many, many years. Maybe I've read about it in Bringers of the Dawn, or I don't know, something like about the Pleiadians years ago, but I've really not heard it mentioned at all recently. Can you share with us what that is, how that came about, or why, or what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. Yes, I am a walk-in soul, and I'm a full soul transfer. My body, I refer to it as my original body, and then I am the walk-in. I am Meru. So the soul that was here inside of this body vacated, and I stepped in. And I stepped in November 4th of 2003. And what occurred was that, it's through the process of death. And the original body had acquired salmonella poisoning from an egg. And so was enrolled in college full-time, working full-time, and basically just allowed it to manifest to the point where, dropped dead on a hospital floor. So good news, I was in the hospital and was brought back by the crash cart. And therefore, astrologically speaking, I was able to have my walk-in chart information. So I am, 13 as a walk-in, and it plays out big time in my life, but it's really become apparent to me over this last little period of time that I had to walk into an adult body, especially with my chart, because I needed to have a broader concept, an adult mind to function this particular chart off of, to actually live this soul mission. So walk-ins are a part of reincarnation, but not all souls have to go through, birth and childhood and even teenage years. Some are just on a really serious fast track, because especially whenever we get into the topic of, all the chemicals and, chemtrails, the frequencies, the Wi-Fi, everything that's basically created to damage our DNA strands and attack the newborns that are coming into this world. So it's actually really hard to get in right now to Earth in a healthy state, and then we're not in a time period where we have time to waste anymore. We can't go through all this growing up and learning and then, running the risk of the boxes that our parents put us into. So there's a really big evolution of souls that are coming in. Now, for instance, when this happened to me, there was like zero information, you know? So when I woke up and they brought me back and they asked me my name, you know, it was Meru Matu. And I immediately realized that, you know, this flesh was not, this was completely alien to me. This planet was not mine. This flesh was not mine. Like this person that they keep calling his name, like who the hell is that? You know? So it's a really interesting thing. I had to really figure out what the hell happened to me, you know? And so it was a very interesting process. Now, you're completely right. Like, there's really nobody out there that's really seeking their truth in this particular respect. But, you know, it's the only truth that I actually have, you know? So I remember where I'm from. The original soul that was in this body, I don't remember her life before, you know? I remember some of her dreams, which is a really interesting thing. But, you know, her family, her friends, her life, I don't have a connection and I don't remember those things. So I'm just, you know, me.
So how was that for your family during that time? Were you, did you literally not recognize it, and did they treat you like you had amnesia, or?
Yeah, it's a really good question because I, you know, the original body was from California and went to college in Seattle. So this occurred in Seattle and it occurred the first semester of college. So I didn't have anybody there. You know, I didn't have any friends that I had made yet. I didn't have any family there located with me. And, you know, following the experience, I was on life support for 2.5 weeks and total in the hospital for 3.5 weeks. So, you know, whenever they sent me on my merry little way and pointed me down the street, because luckily I lived on the same street as in the hospital, you know, I went home and tried to understand what's going on, you know, didn't realize anything was missing. And apparently I'd been in a long-term relationship and, you know, he'd moved out while I was in the hospital. Yeah. So I didn't have any markers. I didn't have any identification. I didn't have any of that. So catching back up with my family, trying to explain it to them was like talking Japanese. So yeah, they thought I had amnesia for sure. But now they've come to understand it more because I was not the same person in any respect. And so that was hard, but at the same time, you know, it's a beautiful thing because you know, my family, they didn't have to go through the process of losing their daughter, their sister, you know, all that sort of stuff because, you know, they're a great family and it would have definitely crushed them. You know what I mean? I don't know how that would have worked out. So it's a very beautiful thing whenever souls can exchange in a vessel and, you know, not disrupt, you know, things that don't need to be disrupted.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I imagine that was no easy ride.
No, not at all. It's gotten easier over time though.
And so do you know where you came from or come from and what you feel like this opportunity is for your soul in this life?
Yeah, I actually do. Great question. Yeah, I'm from Sirius B. Remember it vividly. Whenever I do astral project, I go back home and I do have my family there and also my partner, which is really interesting. And it's a very aware fact that I'm on a mission, you know, and it's really interesting because whenever you get into my astrology, my walk-in chart, it's very specific to a soul that chose to come here on a very specific mission to evolve humanity. You know, that I came in with the frequencies and vibrations and the thought processes that were needed to bring the message that I do every day in my daily astrology, because, you know, I'm explaining it through astrology, but I'm not just talking about the planets, you know, I'm bringing in the higher concepts of the quantum realm because we really need to understand certain things. And, you know, on a level, I really do understand that I'm ahead of my time. And so that's why whenever I created my channel, I created it for a very specific niche, you know, so it's not inclusive, it's exclusive, you know, it's for the souls like you who are, you know, masters walking this planet that can understand, you know. So my goal and my intention is not to reach everybody because not everybody can grasp it or handle it or is meant to hear it right now, because I'm here for the ones that are, you know, already at the top of the mountain and then now need to ascend to the heavens, you know what I mean, in essence. So I'm here for the higher beings that are already here walking this planet, and it's a big honor to do that. And so basically I just had to overcome any last little bits of, the flesh that would naturally hold a person back. So it's funny because I really do refer to my body as a flesh suit. It's not like I don't have the same type of attachments to it that most people do.
Mm. So what about what are some challenges that you do have as far as emotional trauma, ego stuff? How does that show up for you?
I love that question right there. That's really great. Okay, so emotional, and that brings up the topic of astrology, because you pick your tribe, right? You pick your attributes, I definitely refer to life as a video game because I super subscribe to the holographic universe. And so it's like, you pick your attributes, and I chose to be a Scorpio sun with a Pisces rising and a Pisces moon, and Pisces rising at 29 degrees. So that's saying that I chose the basically hardest of the hardest on that one. So when we're talking emotions, I feel them run through my flesh suit, right? But at the same time, I'm capable of taking a bigger perspective look at things. So, since I got here, it's been a very big thing about people knowing who I am before I knew who I was. So I would say that's been my biggest obstacle. My biggest journey is discovering who I really was, because, it's like as soon as I got here, people, launched attacks on my life. So my traumas have come from actually, having multiple attempts, on my life. So I've had my whole right side of my face shattered, missing a piece of my eye socket, missing teeth, had to have surgery on my stomach from being given a flesh-eating disease from it. So it's been a long, interesting thing. And so then that taught me the immediate lesson of forgiveness, and that's not an easy one, especially depending on what or who, or how the circumstances played out. So that was, I think, the biggest blessing that I could possibly be given is absolutely grasping the concept on a cellular level. So whenever it comes to ego, I'm firmly attached to my ego. I think it's a beautiful thing whenever we could separate ego from narcissism, of course. But we really need to know who we are. We really need to hold on to who we are, because, yes, we are part of an entire whole. We're all a piece of this beautiful fractal that, keeps on going, no matter how far up or how far in we go. It's the same spiral, and we're all a part of this spiral. So if we don't act out our individuality through our ego of knowing who we are, then, we disrupt this flow that's supposed to be occurring. Because just like, our body, is like a representation of that fractal. Each little cell inside of it is a representation of each person, or ego. And they all have a job, they all play a part in the whole that is us. So that's the thing. I know that, and I'm aware because, like, again, I'm not speaking to step A people. I'm speaking to, step Z plus they've learned 5 languages people. So whenever I talk, I do understand that I can wind up sounding very elitist, but I blame it on my O negative blood. But at the same time, it's a cultural thing that people have been taught to speak low of themselves and not really, shine a light on the qualities that they have or how firm they are with themselves, and my message to everybody is really like, damn, fall in love with yourself, love yourself to the point that you can't even like handle it, like whenever you're in love with your perfect partner, you don't even want to get out of bed because you're so entrenched in their vibe, And this is a situation where you want to be so in love with yourself that you just want to stay in bed and cuddle with yourself, and it sounds silly, but that's really, really like where we need to go. So, again, the flesh suit, it comes with flesh, it comes with emotions, it comes with like tingly sensations, and it's a biological chemical response situation. So all of the emotions that we feel, they release chemicals in our brain, and then they trigger, sensations all over. So that's, we get the broken hearts, and we get the butterflies, and we get the burnings, and we get the diseases and disorders all based off of them. So, you know, whenever we come to a point of balance, you know, and self-love, we're not any longer operating from that default program, you know, of the mind, and we're not being sucked into our own black hole. We're actually, you know, in different states. So that's been my personal journey. And it's kind of a little unfair whenever I think about it, about how I was able to drop my you know, karma, and also my fear. It happened in a blink of an eye, and I didn't even mean for it to happen when it did. I was just minding my own business, kind of a thing.
Wow. So is there, I'm definitely with you on the self-love activism, and that was just so beautiful when we had our meeting, that you're like, yeah, you totally kicked my ass on that, and I love it. And it's like that merciless, like, no, this is the only answer. It's like that selfishness is the biggest gift you can give, of being yourself in that way. So do you have any hands-on methods or techniques for people to share to get
Yes,
the identification with the emotions in the body that are running the show?
I do. I'm really glad that you asked, because I really do. Okay, so I think that there's two that are the biggest. Okay, now, like I said, you know, there's the issues that hold us up, right? So they are the shit from the past, right? That is key. And I feel like I have a big blessing, because I don't remember anything, you know, past this flesh's body being 23. So I don't have those things. I only have the experiences since when I walked in, right? They were hard. I got a fast track. But at the same time, you know, I can't imagine how it would actually be to have childhood memories running through, because, you know, children are innocent. They are very innocent. And, you know, whenever we take into a higher perspective, we understand that our souls looking into this experience, they're like laughing at us, you know, as humans, like, ha, 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 why are they so caught up in their emotions, you know? So on a soul level, they're like, I got this, you know what I mean? And I'm trying to get through this and on to the next. I'm trying to fast track as a soul. So they're really choosing, you know, our souls on a higher over soul purpose are choosing these very difficult situations to step into as a human or a being here on this planet. Earth is not easy. It is only for the strongest of the strong, not for the weak at heart, right? So, you know, then we get here, and now we're in this flesh suit, and we're like, damn, that hurts, you know, that hurts. And the hurt doesn't just go away. It carries with us, you know? So some of the methods that I've come across that are really important, because, you know, whenever we're talking about this self-love, you know, it's hard whenever we're talking about ourselves, because we're inside of our own bubble. We're inside of our own sphere. But whenever we're talking about others, you know, our intimate partners, our best friends, you know, our family members, they're on an outside. We see things from the outside, and we see the miracle that they are. We see the perfection that they are. We love them, you know? So that's really key. We need to look at ourselves in that same manner. So we need to take that outside perspective. So one of the best things to do is to really, you know, sit down and imagine that you are in a movie theater. Okay, you've gone to the movie theater, and now all of a sudden, oh my God, like this movie is your life story, right? It's playing out on screen, and it's going from A to Z of all the different things that occurred throughout your life, and you're watching yourself. Now, it's good to pay attention to how you're receiving yourself, because A, you're looking at yourself as a victim, or B, you're looking at yourself as the hero of the story, right? So based on what you're doing, you know, that's how you're going to see your character. Now, also taking note, are you rooting for your character to succeed and overcome these challenges, or are you secretly hoping that your character is going to fail? You know, are you for yourself or are you against yourself is the biggest question at the end of the day, because we are so hard on ourselves. We're so super critical of every action, every word, every movement. And that just puts us into this state where we're just on a constant loop of talking shit to ourselves, right? And so that's what we want to stop. And so whenever we, you know, take that perspective, like say you have a best friend that's in an abusive relationship, you know, the only thing you want for your best friend is to be free, to see their own work, to see their own beauty, and be like, you're so magical. Why are you in this situation? Like, why do you subject yourself to these things, you know? So whenever you look at yourself as you're your own best friend, then you can really see the things that you're subjecting yourself to. And then you can start to ask yourself the question, why? You know, why am I doing this to myself? You know, because so many people really do have an honest to God love for source creator, you know, and are just so magically in love and can put themselves in that vibration and just get kind of like high, you know, get high, cry tears of joy, those sort of things. But what they forget is that they are that exact same creator source. There's no difference. There's literally no difference, you know, and again, that's going to, you know, a lot of people take that into the ego level, but no, legit, you know, every scripture that you can go back to, we were created in, you know, his, hers, its image, you know, whatever it is. And that's the part that doesn't matter, because we are, you know, we're experiencing this. And it is creator source experiencing it. You know, we were given all the same attributes, abilities. So whenever we fall in love with creator source, we need to understand we've fallen in love with ourselves. And now, just as magical as creator source is, so are we. So what's stopping us from being that? You know, it's our own perception of ourselves that is based on what other people in society has told us, which is absolutely just bullshit, you know? And I'm sorry, I do have a potty mouth, but that is just me. But another tip and trick that I have is that, you know, whenever you're vibrating with this light, you know, the light is not defined by any sort of outward appearance. The light is defined by vibration, by your source, you know, that emanates from you. So say you roll out of bed and you're crunchy and crusty, you know, you got crap in your eyes, you know, probably mascara smeared if you're a girl, you know, like, you know, you're just in your bedclothes and you run straight to Starbucks or whatever, you know, and then, like that, like, you know, let's just say Brad Pitt is like right there, you know, and you're like, what, you know, so just put yourself in a situation that if you run into your perfect partner, you know, are you shining your light to the fact that it just doesn't matter what you look like, it doesn't matter what state you're in, that somebody, the people around you are still going to be attracted to you, because we understand that it's magnetism, it's electromagnetism that attracts and repels. So you could be looking like the hottest person ever, you know, male or female, just decked out in designer, everything, watch me, whatever, you know, and still come across that person. And it's not going to matter, because if your electromagnetism is repelling them because you're in a shitty state, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter. So this is where we need to overcome these sort of things, you know, put ourselves in a state to where we are always operating on this beautiful vibration of self. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's pretty much what it is, you know. Put yourself in outward situations that you can see yourself from a new perspective, so that you can fall in love with yourself via those methods.
And then basically it's about radical acceptance. Then
radical acceptance
to be not okay, and having empathy for our feelings.
Exactly. Radical acceptance, because, you know, I think that that's the last key to everything, you know, it's just the integration of all of the information, you know, because we all know on a conscious level, you know, but again, that's a creative mind. It's not the subconscious mind. You know, creative mind is here on a linear time frame, you know, where 10 o'clock and 12 o'clock and 10 p.m. all exist, you know. The subconscious mind, it's non-linear. And that's the place that our default programs run from. So that's why we have to, you know, really rewrite our past and not, you know, focus on our future so much, and just be in the present. Because, you know, whenever we all know, you know, everybody watching your channel, everybody watches my channel, they all understand that we have higher guides, you know, whatever you want to call them, you know, our archangels, our oversoul, our higher self, our spirit guides, you know, they are all parts of us, you know, but whenever it comes down to it, we're here in a planet of free will. So they cannot intrude upon our free will. So we have to actually invite them in to assist us. So once you've invited them in to assist you, this is where it gets tricky, because if you are constantly visualizing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, this person, that person, this face, that face, you know, this way, that way, they're like, you got this, you know, you obviously have a freaking plan. You know what I mean? So go ahead with your plan. You've blocked their ability to help you because they are no longer able to intrude upon your free will of how you want to see that and when you want to see that. And again, they're in a place called nonlinear time.
Yeah.
They don't have time. So their instant gratification to us might be freaking like, we're already reincarnated 10 times over. And they're like, but that's what you wanted. You know, I was talking about like 10 lives ago. What the hell? Exactly. So this is where we have to, you know, surrender. And, you know, we're not just doing the life work of this life, we're doing the life work of our oversoul, you know? So our oversoul has a mission. And, you know, that's where we need to gain our acceptance, is that, yes, we came into this life, no matter what happened, with a purpose and with a point that comes from that higher level, that comes from a place of not owning emotions. It comes from a place of not owning time. And so now we're transported here where all that exists. Now we're here to overcome it, because on that level, that's how high we really are, you know? And so then we get brutally freaking honest with ourselves. You know, and that's why I, you know, bring in quantum physics and quantum biology and everything else, because now we're at a place where, you know, science has really proven God. God has really proven science, and this realm of quantum experience is behind the veil. It is that next step in our evolution. It's what the age of Aquarius represents. So we are now in it. We are literally in it. And so it is up to us to not just think about being in it, but to literally just step the fuck into it. You know, so that's what we're here to do. And that's how we're going to get there, is by literally just knowing, okay, this is it. We are it. This is literally it. You know, science will prove that there's nothing outside of ourselves at all. You know, they've understood that our brain is a receiver. It's not a transmitter. Our eyes do not receive. They actually project. You know, that everything that's being manifested is a vision of what's inside. And it's our perception. And our cells respond on a perceptual basis to our environment, you know? So how are we perceiving that? It's muy importante. And it's nobody else's outside. It's always just a reflection. So that is hard. That is literally hard. It's hard to accept, you know, that there's nothing other than, you know, you standing in your own way and or paving your own path, you know? But once you can hit that level with yourself, and just accept it and forgive yourself. This is why it's so important to understand forgiveness, because we're not just talking about forgiving others, we're talking about forgiving ourselves. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a combination of things, but for me, you know, and again, I know you have some Virgo going on in your chart. I have Virgo going on in my chart, you know, so that's whenever we need it, you know, that's whenever it steps out of the woo-woo of just philosophy, you know, metaphysics and spiritual channelings, you know, which are real as anything in this material world. But now whenever we bring science, you know, you can't dispute it. You can't dispute it. So now we understand where we are, that we are quantum biology. So now we understand our power. Those are superpowers. Like, we're freaking superheroes, and we just didn't know because we were never told.
Yeah, I think we're in such a blessed and lucky time right now, in the sense of lucky that science is actually like the new mysticism, because all science is doing right now is supporting the woo. You know, it's like, oh, here's the proof. So I ask this to all astrologers. So if we have all the essences of the other planets and their gifts, you know, Saturn, Mars, Venus of love, what is Earth?
That's a really good question. Earth is the most beautiful marble out there. You know, it's okay on so many levels, and I'm probably going to give you a very different answer than many, okay? Earth is a metaphor, you know, and whenever we go back to ancient Sumeria and we find the oldest tablets that were ever written, they talk about the planet Nibiru. And whenever we get into understanding what Nibiru is, you know, it's another planet that its orbit is so big that it actually has to exit our Milky Way galaxy to come back around, and it passes between the sun and the earth. The reason that Earth is so sought after is because we have gold, you know? and they need gold. They use monoatominized gold for many purposes, for their atmosphere and for their longevity of their flesh, okay? Now, whenever we go back to the emerald tablets and things like that, we find that we were, you know, basically genetically engineered, and it doesn't matter, again, what source we're talking about that we were created from, because it's the same exact story, and it predates anything that has ever walked this planet, right? It talks about how we were made in their image, you know, and it talks about the gifts that were put into our DNA, and it describes this as a simulation, you know? So we are in a simulation of experience, and Earth is the place where we are experiencing it at. Now, this is really interesting because whenever we take the perspective from the Meru, they called Earth Ki, representing Anki, you know? And so they also called it the seventh planet, okay? Because we're talking about their perspective, not ours.
Yeah.
Here, we're known as the third, okay? Does that make sense? That, you know, third dimension, we're the third rock from the sun. But every lie is a metaphor for the truth, right? We have 7 days a week. We have the seven gates to the kingdom of heaven. You know what I mean? We have all these different references to seven, you know? And whenever we take the real perspective, we realize that we were never actually in 3D, you know? It's an illusion. We are actually in the seventh dimension. Earth actually represents the seventh dimension.
Wow. And
we have no freaking clue.
Interesting. I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, as I said, you probably haven't heard this one before.
Yeah, so you haven't, then are you a subscriber to the Flat Earth?
That is also a really good question. And I tell you what, it's the second time I got it today. That's really interesting.
I mean, I have to go there, but I'm trying to know. I just think for an astrologer, it would be like just thrown out. But if you're talking about the seventh dimension, then anything's possible. So that's what I anyway. What's
literally anything is possible.
Yeah,
literally anything is possible. So this is a really great topic because I subscribe to the holographic universe. You know that this is a holographic projection because I mean that every single scientific model that's ever been built from traditional physics all the way through quantum physics, anytime that they try to prove that this is actual solid matter, everything breaks down. The only thing that can keep going is if this is holographic, you know, and that's the thing. You know, to answer your question, I just have to go into this a little bit, you know, our DNA code, it's sequences of ones and zeros, it's binary code. Computers, same thing. But it goes farther than that because this code is actually found written into the air, it's written into the trees, the grass, it's written into the planets. Now, whenever we move forward in time, you know, you get into the argument with Stephen Hawking and Leonard Susskind that we're debating over if information, if somebody were to walk into, say, the galactic center, which is the biggest black hole that we know of right now, it's located in Sagittarius at 26, 27 degrees. And this black hole is immersive, right? So Stephen Hawking said, whatever goes in is erased from time, like Marty McFly and Back to the Future. You know, you get erased from the birth records, your parents never had you, all this other stuff. Leonard Susskind, he said, nope, that's not true because we know information can never be destroyed. It can only be transformed. So they got into this huge debate. You know, ultimately, Leonard Susskind proved Stephen Hawking's wrong. Yay! But the point is that Leonard Susskind continued to go further. And he found that the black hole is just a 2D film strip projecting a 3D reality. Okay? So all of this immersion of this epic stuff that's spraying out of this black hole, you know, it's not sucking it in, it's actually blowing it out, right? And so it's blowing out our information. So whenever you get into the topic of the flat earth, everything is essentially flat. You know what I mean? Yeah. But our perception of this 3D, you know, creates a sphere. So it literally is just like in quantum physics, it is absolutely everything at once. It is both flat and it is both, you know, a round sphere at the same time. And either way, there's evidence to both sides of the story. which I think is really interesting because it's really easy to prove that it's flat and it's really easy to prove that it's round, you know? But if we really take it into the context that this is a holographic simulation and it's, you know, pixelated data that's meant to be perceived, you know, just like in video games. It's the same thing. It's a two-dimensional world that appears to be three-dimensional, just like virtual reality. And we are in the biggest immersion of virtual reality that there is anywhere. You know, we just don't realize it because it's so damn good. Yeah, so that's definitely how I feel about the flat Earth. Is that there? It is. You know what I mean? And either direction is like the creator question. You know, whether we were genetically engineered or we just like spawned from bacteria. You know, either way we go with it, it doesn't take out that there is a creator. You know, so if it's flat or it's round, it doesn't mean that there's not an Earth. But something that's really beautiful about Earth as well is that it actually is the Fibonacci sequence, you know? It is the golden ratio. And out of all the planets in our particular Milky Way, there's only two, and it's Earth and it's Venus, you know? And the rotation of Venus is the 5-pointed star, you know? So it's a beautiful thing to just represent, you know, sacred geometry, coming back to the understanding of the fractal and how we as, you know, say whenever we're being created, you know, whenever we are in a state of, you know, okay, we're just coming into a cellular biology and the cells start to split, you know, and they start to split into sacred geometry. And they, you know, present the Fibonacci sequence. And then, you know, the first thing that grows from this little, you know, chemical components that create us is the heart, you know, and out of that heart grows the tongue, you know, so it's like a heart connection to the mind, you know, so that's why, you know, the ancient Vedas talk about putting your, you know, tongue to the roof of your mouth during meditation and things like that, because it connects the higher heart to the higher mind. And when we understand the higher heart and the higher mind and stop focusing on such a 3D, you know, heart and mind, then we go quantum with it.
It's so interesting how these other things that seem to be in different worlds or in different minds, how they're just connecting, you know, and just, it's all like, the secrets that are coming out are just like, they're so obvious, but you're just having to make the connection. So what do you believe in when you are feeling in trouble? Like, who do you consciously pray to or call on? Like, what's your go-to relation?
Nice. Okay, so if I'm ever feeling away, then, you know, I go to myself because I understand that I'm a spark of it all, you know, and it is all a spark of me. So I call upon my higher self, and this is something that I reworded for myself over time, you know. I really do love Archangel Michael. He just, you know, boom, shows up immediately. I really love the energy of Cryon. But, you know, my oversoul, my God conscious creation, you know, and I have to admit, it's been, there was a portal that opened at the end of October. And whenever that portal opened, there were a convergence of people who got basically, everybody related it to the sensation of a light bulb or like a switch being turned on, because it was just this flood of energy. So when that happened, I felt like I got disintegrated into the universe. I got shocked so hard by this light that it was literally like in Doctor Strange, whenever, you know, the ancient one pushes him out of his body and he just starts going to these portals, you know, and experiencing the universe all at once. And that is literally how it felt. And I was literally walking through my living room here, and I hit the ground and just crumbled pieces of joy. You know, I bawled my eyes out. And in that moment, I haven't had an ounce of fear or anxiety or worry since. Like, I can't even manifest it if I try. Wow. You know, it's just like nothing, you know? And it was the most epic experience ever. And like I said, I was just minding my own business. I was literally just walking through it. I wasn't expecting it to happen. It's been a really interesting thing that the information about what happened that day has wound up presenting itself to me. through not looking for it as well, but it was a portal that opened. So since that happened, my concept of understanding on a cellular level that literally, without a doubt, we are source creator, and that whenever you go into the state where you no longer have fear, then you no longer have triggers. You know what I mean? Because you're not taking things personally anymore, because you're realizing that everybody is doing their own thing. They're all projecting their own thing. We realize that these are all just opportunities. You know, these are all just opportunities, because at the end of the day, you know, the only free will that we really have is our response and our reaction. You know, so this is like a grand play, and we're all the actors on the stage, you know, so everybody is, you know, action, and their job is to come piss you off, right? So that's their role right now, you know. So your role, you know, your free will, you're freestyling this life here, right? You know, you're vibing in the moment. So how you respond, you're writing your script in the moment as you're experiencing it. So whenever we move into this place where we dropped our fear and we dropped our anxiety, like, and it really comes a lot from understanding that this isn't real. You know, this material crap is just an illusion, you know, and whenever we can see it as an illusion, then we stop falling for its tricks all the time. Yeah. You know, so literally, you know, and Dolores Cannon, she really nailed it on her and it, you know, I don't want to say her description because she gave such a credit to this ultimate source. How do I say it? Because it is a consciousness that came through everybody that she worked with throughout her 50 years of doing hypnotherapy, and going, you know, past the subconscious into the symbiotic state, you know, where actual source creator resides, right? So this voice, the same voice came through everybody over 50 years of work. And it was stated that they're called background people. And I love it, you know what I mean? Because not everybody is an actual participant in this show, right? So you're driving down the street and someone's cue is to just haul ass out in front of you and damn near, you know, wreck your car. And so what is your response? Are you like beep beep, like, you know, like going crazy, like road rage, like, you know, are you manic in that moment? Are you just like, oh, that cute little backgrounder? You know what I mean? Like, how sweet, you know? And because she also described it as that
I woke up this morning thinking of that show Extras, and I was just thinking, like, what a great premise that was, and like this just was so perfect.
Truly, you know, because she also said that basically whenever you react with them, you know, because they're basically like souls trying to get into this simulation themselves. So whenever you actually engage with them, whenever you're just like flipping them off, driving down the road, you know, you've actually now given them a speaking role, you know. And isn't it funny that, you know, whenever it comes to actual movie extras and you give them a speaking role, now they can apply to SAG and become a part of the, you know, Actors Guild and get bigger roles. And that's, you know, again, you know, a metaphor for what we're doing here. So, you know, it's your choice. You want to big them up and bring them into this experience and give them a speaking role, and go ahead, you know, but you have that choice not to, because you know you're the main actor or actress, you know. This is your show. We're all just living in it, you know.
I love that perspective. Yeah, and what you were saying about the self-love and all of that, that reminded me of Teal Swan had a very powerful, or practices a powerful question that I think is super, super challenging in making your choices of what would a person who loved themselves do. You know, in every situation now, what would a person who loved themselves do? You know, and I just think, because we don't really know the answer. You know, if we're still practicing this. But I think it's such a great question.
It is, you know, and you're the third person that's brought up Teal Swan. I haven't seen her channel or what she does, so I actually, you know, that's the affirmation confirmation. I need to check her out, right? But this is a good thing, because, you know, and as you've seen my channel, I talk about stop practicing, start doing, like, damn, you already fucking know by now. You know what I mean? It's like everybody that I talk to has studied every single modality. You know what I mean? They know everything about everything. You know, so this is where all that information now imported. So, you know, what would a person who loved themselves do? Like I said, I think it's easier if we take an outside perspective, because we're so in our own bubble. You know, it's so hard to see ourselves clearly. So whenever we take the outside, you know, what would someone who loves their best friend do? You know, because are you your own best friend, or are you a frenemy? This is the biggest question.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
So whenever you've defined that, then you understand, oh shit, like I am so against myself. It is not even funny. Like, no wonder the world is like presenting itself like it's a roadblock every single step I take, or word I say, or action I make, you know? So whenever you see yourself from that outside perspective, it's the same thing. You know, what would a person who loves themselves do, and what would a person who loves someone else do, you know, want them to do?
Yeah.
You know,
that's a really great one. Yeah. I love that example of who you're laying next to in bed, the one you have a crush on, you don't want to leave the bed. You know, it's like you just want to be in that vibration and coming into that self-embodiment like that. On that topic though, what came up today with a few people I spoke with, I would love to get your take on addictions and dealing with addictions, because that is like the remedy to surviving life for most people. And you know, it comes in myriads of forms, whether it's drugs or alcohol, food, technology, video games, all of it. And you know, what are some of the first steps you recommend people to practice, or where to begin?
I love it. Okay, so whenever it comes to addiction, my approach is super ego, because it's like, you know, me run things not run me, you know? So it's like whatever power you choose to give is what is going to have an ultimate control over you. So this is, you know, where you have to get back to being brutally honest with yourself, you know? You do something because you want to do it. End of story. There's no other motivating factor. So, you know, I was vegan for 10 years. And it was an interesting thing, because I realized, like, okay, like our taste buds are so small, you know, they're so tiny, and they're so powerfully selfish. You know, they're so powerfully selfish that we will go to the ends of the earth to slaughter and, you know, do the worst things ever, you know, in the name of satisfying our selfish little taste buds. You know, so it comes down to, you know, your ethics, and it comes down to your self-control, because we can, you know, defeat addictions at any point if we'd like to. And then, you know, the knowledge that what we're doing is we are searching for chemical responses in our brain. You know, our brain releases chemicals in certain orders because we are introducing certain substances, certain things. You know, for me, Starbucks is my addiction. It's my only vice still, but right. It's my thing, you know, and I don't want to stop, you know, I don't want to, so I'm not going to.
Exactly that today. I said exactly that today.
That's so funny.
Coffee.
Yeah, I don't want to. It's an addiction, okay? It is an addiction. I acknowledge that it's an addiction, and it's an addiction that I'm, you know, happy to keep until I change my mind.
And it's not the
end of the world. It's not the end of the world. I could have worse vices, right? But, you know, whenever we're getting into topics about, you know, food and drugs and sex and things like that, and we are battling ourselves, you know, trying to get over these addictions, I recommend going with the ego. And I recommend being narcissistic about it, because in this respect, you take such self-ownership that you're like, I'm better than that. Like, I am legitimately better than that. I'm a thinking, conscious being, you know, faced with an addiction to an inanimate object, you know, whether I'm eating it or snorting it or, you know, whatever. I'm bigger, I'm better, I'm stronger, you know? And, you know, it might not always be the best remedy, but for me, I think that that's where it all comes down to, is you're re-empowering yourself. But if you need to go with the ass version of it for a minute, then go with the ass version of it, you know, and then you realize your self-power, because at the end of the day, it's all chemicals. So that's what we're chasing. Whenever we're chasing sex, we're chasing dopamine, you know, and whenever we're chasing relationships, we're chasing oxytocin. When we're chasing food, we're also going to the serotonin, you know. So finding better ways to, you know, understanding the brain is such a key to everything, you know, because we understand the left and the right side. We understand we need to hemi-sync it and come into unity. And that's where all of this can be balanced, because if we're operating from just the left or the right, we're always either logical or emotional. And only whenever we come together with it can we get this perspective that makes us understand things on a higher level, this higher consciousness. So then we give ourselves more worth, and we understand we're worth beating whatever addiction that we're fighting. And then we can understand that the chemicals are very important. So then we get the idea to start researching, okay, what does my addiction produce as far as chemicals in my brain? What else produces these same chemicals in my brain, so that you could at least give it a try? You know what I mean? It might be yoga for whatever it is, you know, because that also releases serotonin and dopamine, you know, and also gives us this overall euphoric feeling that we're looking for a lot whenever we're talking about drugs and alcohol and those sort of things. And then we also understand, why is it that we are addicted to these things? Like, what are we escaping from? What is it supplementing? And I tell you what, the best supplement to every single thing that you no longer have to worry about anything, and it becomes your own free will and you accept it. You don't say you're addicted anymore. It's just what it is, because this is who I am and this is what I want to do, is whenever you love yourself. Again, because you're not trying to escape yourself. You know, whenever we do drugs and we do alcohol, things like that, we're trying to escape our flesh body. And so again, comes down to accepting that on a higher level, you chose to be here to have a flesh body. And you know how hard it is to get into earth? It's not easy. You know how hard you had to work to get here, and now you're trying to get out every 5 seconds, you know? So whenever you fall back in love with yourself and you understand you have a mission here, because you are source creator, you know, you have a purpose here, then you step into that. And it's not that you don't want to let other people down. You now don't want to let yourself down, because now you're looking at yourself in a whole different perspective.
Absolutely. And that's how we get back to astrology, because you help people maybe perhaps get another perspective on themselves. What do you feel like, what is your passion around astrology, of how you like to share it with people?
So me and astrology, I love astrology because there's so many layers to it, you know, so many levels. And it's like, to know that you have a program, right? Okay, so going back to your DNA is a computer generated code. Now your astrology is what program you're running, you know? So things that you're really hard on yourself about, you know, that you beat yourself up about over every day, that you find is a negative quality, whenever you look into your astrology, it's there. You know what I mean? Whenever it's there, we can understand that this is me. You know what I mean? I am living my design. And that's a really beautiful thing, because as a general, on a society level, we're taught, you know, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, grow up, go to school, get married, have kids, you know, pay your bills, get a credit card, go into debt, freaking get a disease, die in a hospital, like leave your family with tons of expenses when you go. You know, I mean, that's like literally basically our construct, right? So whenever we understand it, we're different, you know, and society always likes to point out those who are different and say that they're weird or that they're strange. Like, thank you. I appreciate that very much. I am very grateful for that compliment, you know? Whereas other people are just like, you know, they want to go slit their wrists. So we need to understand that not everybody is meant to be the same or do the same thing. Like, we're all meant to be so severely individual and so severely, like, non-apologetic for who the hell we are, you know? And whenever you have evidence, you know, whenever you have proof to back up, you know, you can be like, look right here, I have Mercury conjunct my sun in Gemini, so that's why I'm like, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? Like, it'll never stop. Like, this is me, I'm living my program. And then whenever you see the one that's like, you know, more of like your narcissistic conjunctions, you know, and they're just a total narcissist, and, you know, the worst, instead of being like, damn, you're such a, you know, whatever, you're like, bravo, you are Nailing it right there. You are living your purpose, you know? So if we could understand everybody on this bigger scale that, you know, not everybody's meant to be perfect and not everybody's meant to be nice. Not everybody's meant to operate from the heart. Not everybody is meant to blow up nations and slaughter, you know, entire cultures. But this is all an experience. This is all learning evolution. And some people it really is. You know what I mean? So this is where astrology can pave a path to greater understanding. And if we could all understand it from, like, say, childhood, nobody would be bullying anybody. You know, nobody would be fighting against anybody. It would just be an overall acceptance because we have our own program. I don't want you to import your virus into my program. You know what I mean? I don't want to import mine onto yours. And then we understand that we think differently. We speak differently. We vibrate differently. And it's meant to. Our filter of the world is different. So whenever we get into these word wars, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And we get into these belief wars, that's where astrology can overcome all of those because you know what? Like the way that we're programmed to receive love is not the same way that other people are meant to project love. Mm-hmm. You know, this is our own interpretation. This is our own program running. You know, so say, you know, people choose PC or they choose Mac, you know? It's a different style. And one of them is not going to act like the other in the story. Like they are different, right? And we accept them for who they are because we know that they've been programmed to operate that way. Okay, so now whenever we get into astrology, and especially whenever we get into working through issues in composite charts and synastry and Davidson, things like that, whenever it comes to relationships with other people, if we find that we have no ability to communicate, all right, let's look at it in the chart. Let's see how you communicate, and let's see where we can, you know, create a middle ground so that we can then create harmony, right? Because we attract to certain people for reasons, because they're meant to teach us lessons. They're meant to, you know, come back and repeat certain segments of past lives. You know, we're all here fulfilling destinies. Mm-hmm. So whenever we can look at it through an astrological perspective, you know, and again, going back to the Emerald Tablets and to the Nibiru and all of that, you know, in ancient Egypt, they called him Thoth, but Thoth is also Hermes. He's Quetzalcoatl from the Mayans, you know, he's right. Also Krishna. I mean, every single story that was ever written follows Thoth, but he is the god of all knowledge. He's the god of astrology and the god of alchemy. You know, he was the genetical engineer that put certain codes into our DNA that would unlock based on the 9 galactic tones, you know, so that's what was so important about that is that, you know, each galactic tone was a faster evolution of mind, of consciousness, of manifestation from mind. Now we're in a realm where we are manifesting every 20 days because we're past the precession of the equinox. So if we don't understand this, and what the precession of equinox was, the actual alignment with the galactic center, you know, this immersive black hole that I'm talking about. So whenever we put it all into context, if we didn't have astrology, we wouldn't know any of this about ourselves or about others or about our Milky Way galaxy or the universe outside.
Yeah, there's a lot there. Well, for someone like myself and for those out there who'd like to know, what are some recommendations you have to start to get to learn astrology for yourself, or to start to be able to connect to your own chart?
Good question. So, you know, whenever you start to study astrology, it's a slippery slope is what I would call it, okay? Because astrology is really old. It's really old, and it hasn't been updated that often. So whenever you get into reading these textbook terms that, you know, reference what, you know, Sun in Aquarius is, or what Moon conjunct Saturn does, you know, you can actually put yourself into a bit of a fatalistic standpoint, and you're like, well, crap, I'm screwed, you know? And so you want to really, really, really bring forth the information that, you know, these planets have gone through thousands and thousands and millions and billions of years of transits, right? Whenever these books were written was from old world perspectives, you know, and especially if you're into Vedic astrology, you know, Vedic is still very culturally based, but even in the, you know, if we're going back, you know, thousands of years, they were super serious about, you know, making sure that, you know, you had cows and you married wives and you had kids and you didn't travel away from the family because you had family responsibilities. So the same things that are seen in Vedic that are describe that you're going to be a massive world traveler. In Vedic, that's going to describe it to you is that you are bad. You are bad for leaving your family. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to want to go out. You're going to want to experience the world, So we need to change our filter, what we look through this at. So that's the biggest key that I have to give to people who are just starting out in astrology is don't believe it all. Understand the transits, understand especially what's happening right now. Saturn is a really great example because right now, while we're doing this interview, Saturn is at 23 degrees of Sagittarius. And so the galactic center, this black hole I keep talking about, is at 26, 27 degrees. So anyone out there that has Sagittarius, personal planets, outer planets, at 26, 27 degrees of Sagittarius, recognize you're here representing this new paradigm, this galactic center of our Milky Way galaxy. So it's a super important thing to understand. I highly recommend looking into your chart for that. But Saturn, on a basic level, is known as being the construct of the third dimension, ruling time and space. It's the ruler of Capricorn, the structure, so laws, government, boundaries, borders. We're in a Saturnian situation. And so the thing is that, Saturn coming through here, he only transits every 28 to 30 years, right? So last time Saturn was in this position was way back in 1987. Okay, so he only went through the galactic center for less than a month's period of time, and that's what kicked off the galactic convergence. So now we fast forward in time, it's taken Saturn 29 years to get back to this point, right? So whenever he hits the galactic center this time, he's going to be there for 3 months in a direct position. He's going to retrograde for a month. Once he comes back through, he'll be there for another month. So, okay, look at what has happened to the construct of life since 1987. How much has this third dimension changed? The construct of Capricorn, the construct of Saturn changed since 1987. And he wasn't even there for an entire month. He was there from the 11th of December to the 23rd of January. A very, very short amount of time. And now we're getting 5 months. So this is how anyone who's starting out in astrology needs to look at astrology as present day. We are exactly the same as the planets. Every single time we make new friends, every single time we get new jobs, every single time we drive down the street to go to the store, it's a transit. These planets are transiting the same. So just as much as we change every minute of every day, the planets are as well. So we need to not look at things in a fatalistic textbook sense. We need to import our intuition, you know what I mean? And understand that whenever we're looking through astrology, through the filter of astrology, we're only going to see it based on our perception of the world. So if we are depressed, if we are thinking that the world looks like shit, then you know what? Your astrology chart is going to look like shit, And whenever you read for other people, because there's a lot of astrologers out there that are just like, you know what? You're screwed. You're screwed. Straight up screwed, And then you're just like, I'm screwed, That's your
I don't know if anyone does that, really. It would depend. I think a lot of people are getting
some Facebook forums. Join some astrology Facebook forums. It is a dog-eat-dog world out there. It really was a bit of a disheartening thing to see. It doesn't happen like on YouTube the way that it does, but you always see. That's why people attract to certain astrologers and not others, is because we're attracted to the filter in which this particular astrologer sees the chart through, so whatever filter matches yours is basically who you're going to attract to, So that's my biggest thing is just, keep an open mind. Don't take it literally. Anything that has a negative aspect to it, understand that that's just kind of like a shadow. So what is the positive of that? How can I rise above it? But it just comes from constant studying, constant. It literally is an obsession. And if you're not absolutely obsessed, like it becomes your perfect partner, because I tell you what, it keeps you up until like the wee hours of the morning, and then it makes you get out of bed early. You know what I mean? It's like you have to fall in love with astrology. It's not a lighthearted thing because it's an integration of, it connects every single thing that there is. And it's so much information, and it's so much science, it's so much mathematics, it's so much astronomy, it's so much everything. History, you know what I mean? Because you need to understand where the planets were whenever certain historical things happened. how that's relating to the cycle that's coming back now. What are the connections, things like that. So it literally, unless you're willing to be obsessed, you know, unless you're willing to marry astrology, you know, it will be a bit difficult. But if you're all in, like you just married it, like put a ring on it, you know what I mean?
Well, it seems like the people who discover it can and have suddenly like this knack for it really do have almost like an ancient memory that comes through or gets reborn, and it's all laid out for them in a magical way. It seems like the red carpet's rolled out for them. But just for the layperson, are there any books that you recommend or any sites as far as just light study?
You know, that's a good question. I never did buy any books myself.
Wow.
I just constantly Google, YouTube, like obsessed, you know? And I remember something that the Vedic astrologer KRS said whenever I first started watching. I first got into Vedic astrology and then moved into Western, and then basically I've created my own vibration because I have a hard time with following structures, right? Big surprise. So it's just, you know, I feel whenever you are something like the internet, you know, it's a beautiful thing because, okay, now you've intaken this one topic that you were interested in, you know, maybe, you know, Pluto generations. That's always a good one to check into because it's so enlightening. It's a generational aspect. You can get an overall vibe for what separates, you know, ages. But, you know, you're searching that and you're like, oh, Bing, I want to go here. And then you search that, and then Bing, I want to go here. And you search that, where, you know, if you're in a book, you're just like committed to the book, you know? And for some people that really works, you know, for me, it didn't work necessarily. But, yeah, I love Astrolada's channel. Astrolada has a collective of astrologers that work with her. I'm really a big fan of Magic Mike, who his personal channel is The Peace Dealer. He is absolutely comedy. He is hilarious. He presents astrology in a very different way. We have a very similar vibe, but at the same time, it is not boring in any way, shape, or form. And it's taking the higher consciousness to a higher level with it. But Astrolada, she does a blend. She does Vedic, she does Western, you know. But I recommend it's just trial and error, you know. So it becomes, you know, discernment. Discernment is absolutely key in anything and everything, you know. So use your discernment whenever you feel that the person is vibrating truth to you. You know, stick with them. Whenever you feel like you're reading some BS, then, you know, you're reading some BS and move on. You know what I mean? Those sort of things. So it's just finding a way that it's presented to you that you can integrate it, because you're right. You know what I mean? It comes from past life things. And, you know, looking at my chart, like it's astrologer. Mm-hmm. And when I first got into this, I wasn't meaning to be an astrologer. I was trying to find out about my walk-in chart and how that connected to my original body chart. And, you know, I was like more the me, mm-hmm. not realizing that I had to learn absolutely everything just to decipher me, you know? And then not realizing I knew how to read charts. My friend threw me under the bus in front of a ton of people and was like, here, read this person's chart. And I'd never met him before. Read his chart, and he literally had to just leave. Like, he was so blown away that he couldn't even, like, he was just like, it floored him, you know. He had a jam. So that's when I realized I could, you know. And then you get into aspects, and they were like Japanese to me until I took a different perspective and understood that, okay, literally the planets are like us, the houses are like us, these transits are experiences then between us, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, as soon as I looked at it from that view, all of the aspects made sense, you know. But it never, I could, like, you know, this degree, that degree, separation of this, you know, sextile opposition, quincunx, I was like, you know what I mean? Like, what? And then understanding the degrees really just shake my reality every time I read a degree. Like, I'm so in love with degrees, I can barely even count myself, you know? Because each degree means something very specific. So you can get really into it. So just follow your passion about what excites you about it. One of the ways that I went astray is that I'm so interested in everything and I want to know everything about everything that as soon as any new information presented itself to me, I just jumped into it without finishing studying what I was studying. So then at a certain point I had to realize, that I needed to focus. I needed to focus and pick what it was that I was going to be, bringing forth, you know what I mean? And again, how I wound up in this was not intentional whatsoever. It was just actually me surrendering to what I was guided through and, wound up in this place where I'm able to do this at the right time, and that's what's huge is that the people that have come to me that I've read for, they've all said, like, had you showed up even like a month before, I wouldn't even have been in this space to hear you right, And so it's like to the minute I showed up at the right time. And it's amazing. It's so amazing. I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like we just don't know. We're just so programmed in our Western way to not relax, to not stop pushing. But if we really, in Hawaii, we always call it Hawaii time. If we just really relax and trust that everything is happening in right time, then it's like everything comes to you on a platter. Just really trusting that timing. Well, we've had a long interview. I'm so grateful. And yes, you've been just such a wealth of connecting so many different dots and information and energy. I'm so grateful. I am so in awe that you're doing your daily forecast, which is just such a commitment. I don't know how you're pulling that off, but thank you. So I encourage everyone to look at Sun Soul Astrology on YouTube. Is there any message that you feel like needs to come out for 2017?
Actually, yeah, thank you. And I'm really happy. Thank you again for having me. And yes, Sun Soul Astrology on YouTube. I'm there every day. And that's what I had to do. I had to take the leap of faith and leave my job. And I'm also a recording artist. And I had a big contract with a major label. And I stepped out of it so that I could be here to do this mission with everybody. So I'm absolutely committed to it. And yeah, that's the message of 2017 is that we're moving into the archetype of the individual, the honoring of the individual. We're not following trends anymore. We're setting trends. We're not following them. So, the hierarchy or the archetype of the actor, actress, recording artist, all that, the fashion model, it's all falling to the wayside. The whole construct, the matrix is breaking down because we are waking up, right? So, this is the past of the future. We all, and how many people are going to be left behind? Because of course, we represent a small percentage of the overall all. So whenever it comes to those who have been dedicating their life to being light workers and healers and all of that, that's why I need to step in here now and do my part so that whenever all of those that, are perceptively left behind, those are the ones that are going to seek us out. They're not going to be buying CDs and DVDs anymore. They're going to be like calling us, because the whole paradigm, their whole structure is just crumbled in front of their eyes. Yeah. So this is a message of 2017. It's the age of Aquarius, you know what I mean? So that's why we need to get over our last little pieces of whatever, you know what I mean? Wipe up our own self, pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and get on this mission. Because if we don't have absolute true faith, like if we don't drink our own Kool-Aid, if we don't believe in our own self on the heart center of every piece of us that we are, then we cannot help nobody. You know what I mean? And they're never going to believe us whenever they get to this point where they need us the most. So that's what all of this is about.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to have found you, and you're such a soul sister and ally, or probably I'm from Sirius too. It keeps popping up.
Seriously.
All right, big aloha to you, and I hope that your juju will spread to many, many more in a quantum way this year.
Many thanks, and God bless. I'm really grateful for this opportunity, and aloha to you too.